Hey you guys, what is up? What is going on? So today I had to make sure I made this video. I'm at home right now, which is amazing, in my little office for one day having a remote job. I don't know, whatever. We might just give up their dream. But anyway, on to today's video. Today's video, we are going to talk about this whole, what's it called? Performance related layoffs. Y'all, it is a whole scheme and a scam. It is absolutely ridiculous that people, now if you're getting laid off because you have poor performance and the company's like, hey, we're downsizing, we got to cut the fat, and you, my dear, are the fat, I get it, I understand, I can't be too mad at it. But what we're finding out is that people are not, the whole performance related is a little term that's being applied very loosely. And we're also finding out that there's a little bit more behind that whole performance related term when it comes to laying off employees. So many of you, if you've been paying attention to things going on in the news lately, especially when it comes to jobs and layoffs like I have been, you have seen that Meta, Facebook, some people know, are more familiar with it being Facebook, but Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, they have laid off several employees. I mean, into the thousands of employees. And they determined or said that the reason was performance related, okay? And now just recently, just a few days ago, Microsoft has laid off, they said, about 3% of their workforce, which someone said ranged about, in totality, about 5,000 people and they deemed it as performance related. And so what we're gonna do, we're gonna get into what this really means for the employees who were laid off and what it really means for the company, what the company is actually saying, okay, or really what the company is actually trying to get away with legally. All right, so I got on my trusty, handy dandy Google Gemini and asked for it to kind of help me get a better understanding of some of the effects on this performance related term. So what I asked Google Gemini was, I said, can you provide me with a few issues that have been raised about the effects of quote, low performance layoffs? This is what Google Gemini said. And after this, we're going to jump into an article about these layoffs. All right, so stay tuned. It says, Gemini says, while, quote, low performance layoffs might seem like a straightforward way to streamline a workforce, they raise several significant issues. Number one, damage to morale and trust among remaining employees. And I've heard this in a couple of videos I've watched. Increased anxiety and fear. Survivors may worry about their own job security, fearing that they could be next, especially if the criteria for, quote, low performance seem unclear or arbitrary. This can lead to a climate of uncertainty and stress. Yes, and they can open you up for lawsuits, especially if you have no determination on if something is actually, I actually was performing low, if there was some sort of metrics that I was supposed to follow throughout. But we're going to get more into that later. Okay, decreased trust and management. If layoffs are perceived as unfair, poorly communicated, or not genuinely performance related, employees can lose trust in leadership and the organization's fairness. And I really hope this air conditioner is not going to mess up with this audio. The next thing, survivor guilt. Remaining employees might feel guilty that they kept their jobs while colleagues lost theirs, leading to decreased morale and motivation. Next, reduced productivity. Anxiety, fear, and guilt can all contribute to decreased focus. Yes, of course, if you feel like everything you're going to do is being scrutinized down to the T, you're going to be not able to think clearly. And can all contribute to decreased focus, engagement, and overall productivity among the remaining workforce. The second thing, legal and ethical concerns. Risk of discrimination claims. If low performance layoffs disproportionately affect employees in protected groups based on age, race, gender, etc., the company could face discrimination lawsuits, proving that the layoffs were solely based on documented poor performance is crucial. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Wrongful termination risk. If an employee was labeled a, quote, low performer without proper documentation, warnings, or opportunities for improvement, they may have grounds for a wrongful termination claim. Next thing, defamation. Publicly stating that layoffs were due to, quote, low performance, especially if untrue or not consistently applied, can damage the reputation of those laid off. We're definitely going to talk about that. Of those laid off and potentially lead to defamation lawsuits. Now, I have heard a lot of people saying that when they try to go and apply for other jobs, some of the jobs would contact, especially in the tech sector, some of the jobs would contact the previous employer, or even just assume that the previous employer was whoever they came from, that they were laid off because of low performance. But a lot of them says if they have that as a stigma, sometimes they wouldn't even see what people were just the latest layoffs were. So you say if you got laid off, they would assume that, oh, you were from this company. It was probably because you were a low performer. And that would hinder them from finding future work and getting future jobs. So the next thing is ethical implications of transparency. There are ethical questions around the honesty and transparency of labeling layoffs as performance related, especially if the underlying reasons are financial or strategic restructuring. And we have heard about that as well. That these companies are actually planning to lay off people anyway, and that they try to protect themselves from getting certain lawsuits by claiming that these people were low performers. The next thing is, number 3, an impact on company culture and reputation. Erosion of culture. A perceived lack of fairness and compassion during layoffs can significantly damage company culture, leading to a more negative and distrustful environment. Oh, heck yeah. If I know my friend Sally was at the desk next to me or whatever, me and her talked a while, and I knew she was working her butt off, and I knew where her work ethic was and the things that she accomplished and that she did, and you all laid her off and called it because of low performance, it would definitely have me looking like, okay, I may work here right now, but I'm definitely looking for another job. So yeah, there's that. Then it says damage to employer brand. News of poorly handled layoffs, especially those labeled as solely low performance, can negatively impact the company's reputation as an employer, making it harder to attract and retain talent in the future. Yeah, because this is the kind of place, if you get in there and you get another job opportunity, you're going to more think of this one, well, this company just lays people off and they do it in such a nasty type of way. If I get another opportunity that even looks marginally better, I'm going for it. So the next thing is number 4, loss of skills and knowledge. Even if individuals are labeled low performers, they still possess institutional knowledge and skills that can be lost when they leave. Mass layoffs based on performance can inadvertently remove valuable experience from the organization. Yeah, because if someone's a low performer and they already know the ins and outs of your company, why not put them on some sort of performance, what do they call it? But anyway, where you work towards meeting certain metrics or whatever and to increase your performance over a period of time, and then they do like a follow-up to see how well you've improved. So the next thing is potential for inaccuracy and bias in performance evaluations. Performance evaluations are often subjective and can be influenced by biases. Using these evaluations as the sole basis for layoffs can lead to unfair outcomes if the evaluations themselves were flawed. Number 6, alternatives often exist. Companies might resort to, quote, low performance layoffs without fully exploring alternatives like performance improvement plans. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. PIP, Performance Improvement Plan. Retraining, internal transfers, voluntary departures. Yeah, giving the person the opportunity to depart voluntarily. I mean, maybe that's not always possible, but it's an idea. Or other cost-saving measures. All right, so we got that, and now we're going to get into this article that talks about some of these most recent layoffs. All right, this is an article from Bloomberg Law, and it's titled Performance-Based Layoffs, Blur Firings, Increase Company Risk. All right. Microsoft Corporation and Meta Platforms Inc. are among companies targeting underperforming workers through layoffs, a practice that could obscure the line between legitimate workforce reductions and traditional firings. Okay, we're going to skip over some of the extra jargon. Okay, they said this month, which this is back in January, so this is the beginning of the year. This month, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg recently told the company in an internal memo that he decided to raise the bar on performance management and move out low performers faster, end quote. Taking aim at roughly 5% of its staff for cuts. His decision followed a similar announcement by Microsoft regarding job cuts aimed at underperforming employees. Yeah, because I think this is the second round that Microsoft is doing. I think Microsoft did a original round at the beginning of the year. So, it says, while the practice is often framed as necessary for reducing staffing expenses and streamlining operations, it's also considered a less confrontational way to let someone go. Basing mass terminations on performance, however, oversimplifies the issues by shifting the responsibility for potentially poor workplace management. Yeah, that is a possibility that the managers may not have been doing their job on managing how to get work done. I have seen that. Everybody who's a manager ain't meant to be a manager. Anyway, shifting the responsibility for potentially poor workplace management onto the employee and concealing the true nature of the action, employment law attorneys said. Companies conducting performance-based mass layoffs forego legal hoops. This is what caught my eye in this article. Forego legal hoops, typically associated with workforce reductions unrelated to performance, said Jay Thomas, founder of the Spiegel law firm. Okay. For example, employers laying off workers could run into legal trouble under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Acts. This federal law requires employers with 100 or more workers to give a 60-day notice before firing more than 50 employees at a single work site. Exceptions to the notice requirement include job cuts due to performance issues. There you go. There you go. You don't want to have to deal with this. So you want to be able to just lay off mass numbers of people and not have to worry about later on a lawsuit, which, I mean, you still open yourself up for a lawsuit, because if you can't prove that this was a performance-related layoff, and if these people have proof that you laying them off because of, quote, poor performance that hindered them from getting future work, you still gonna get a lawsuit. But I think these people think that we just want to do what we want to do for right now and not have any consequences. And this brings to another point I want to make too about these performance-related layoffs. Do you know that calling a layoff and determining or labeling it as low performance or poor performance, a lot of states will make it where, and I don't know if some of the states that this is happening, but a lot of states, they will not allow the person to file unemployment. So the company saves themselves from getting unemployment insurance claims against their company. Especially, think about it, if you're doing 5,000, UPS just recently did 20,000 people. You're doing thousands of people, and these people are able to file unemployment insurance claims. You probably don't want to deal with that. You probably don't want that. That probably is not going to make your bottom line look so great after all. So if they can label you as poor performance, or say that you were later laid off due to, how is it worded? Your layoff was performance related. when that happens, I know here in the state of Missouri, if it's labeled as due to performance issues, yeah, they will deny your unemployment claim. So you are just out of a job, you are out of money, and you are out on your, okay? So it kind of makes you, it kind of makes me upset. It kind of makes me in my feelings a little bit, because I feel like it's so wrong. I feel like this is wrong. If you as a company cannot afford to keep certain people for a period of time, is it not your responsibility to look at the performance, how things are coming out? I guess looking at your balance sheet to see how much it's costing you to operate, how much profit you're making. It is your responsibility as a company to keep track of that. And by keeping track of that, you, in smaller increments, you lay people off. You give them some sort of small little, I mean, it doesn't have to be, it could be big, but give them some sort of severance package. You do PIP, performance improvement plans with people. It's your responsibility as a company to keep an eye on that. So for you to just think, oh, things are looking bad, let me just lay off 10,000 people. And because we really don't want no one to file unemployment, let's just call them all low performance. And let's just wipe our hands of that. That is so irresponsible for a company to do that. It's just so disrespectful to the people who work for them, the people who show up, the people who put in their time, their blood, sweat, tears. They are away from their family. They don't. I know a lot of people, especially in this day and age. I've heard so many people being so afraid to take time off when they really, really needed to. They were so afraid to take time off because they were afraid that they would lose their job. They'll end up with a target on their back. So people put so much into these companies, and let's be honest, you can say people can just start a business. It's just this and this and that. Yeah, people can, but you don't just start a business and immediately earn income. You have to keep a job somewhere. So even with that, people saying, well, just get into business for yourself, which is a great idea. I fully support that. It's something I'm looking to get into at some point myself. But the reality is most people rely on these jobs. They rely on you apply for jobs, you train for jobs because you're thinking this job is going to help you pay your bills. This job is going to help provide a roof over your head. It's going to give you food. You're going to be able to take care of your family. We get on these jobs for this reason. For them to just throw you off because they decided to make a huge cut because their bottom line isn't looking good and they just do it all of a sudden, that is garbage. That is garbage. So I didn't even know there's such thing called Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act. This federal law requires employers with 100 or more workers to give a 60-day notice before firing more than 50 employees at a single work site. Yeah, well, anyway, I'm going to keep coming back and checking in with you guys. We're going to talk about things going on when it comes to employment and jobs and what we can do to retrain ourselves, look into small business starting. I mean, I'm pretty sure and I feel confident to say all of us have some sort of special skills or abilities where we can benefit off of our own talents and skills. And we're going to tap into stuff like that. We're going to talk about this mess that's going on now because we're going to keep an eye out on what's going on out here in these job streets, okay? In these career streets, especially for us that are 40 and over, 40 plus, because many of us 40 plus, I mean, there's younger people as well, but many of 40 plus people have a lot on the line. A lot of times we're taking care of older parents. A lot of times we're taking care of kids that are younger kids, but then also sometimes we have kids that are in college. A lot of times we have mortgages, we have car payments, we have health care that we like to try to keep up with. And so things like this type of disruptive and disrespectful behavior from companies and businesses that we work for are not cool. And they can be very, very devastating to people when these things like this happen. So we're going to keep our eye on this. We're going to keep a conversation going on in the comment section about this. But I would love to know if any of you all have ran into any of this low performance layoffs or firings, and what type of issues you've run into with that, or if you know someone that's gone through this. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful day, and I will tap back in with you guys another day. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye for now.